So we're going to do some stuff in Dataverse today. Now, I'm aware some of you might or might not know what this is, but I'll get you through it very shortly.
SharePoint, right?
No, but this is a real database. Anyway, yeah, so my name's Chris. I'm part of the low-code team at a company called aka.ms. Also, I just wanted to have more badges than everyone else, so like that's what I did. I have a badger badge as well. Literally means nothing. Anyway, so just a quick one. You can read all of the stuff up on the Microsoft security site, so on the Dataverse pages. It's all there, except for the hacky bit at the end I'm going to show you, and probably get into trouble for. Yeah? So just keep me honest on time, please.
You got it.
Thank you, sir. Okie dokes. So I worked with this company probably around a year ago, and there are about 75,000 people in the business, and they have a lot of environments. So I was like, oh man, this is insane. Like, how do we manage all the people accessing this stuff? And they said, Chris, what we want to do is we have about, 40, 50 countries where people are coming from. At the time, Dataverse the maker experience didn't have an environment filter, which was not great. So when you log on as a maker, you get assaulted with what I would kind of call this experience here. Now, imagine you have 75,000 people accessing the maker experience. So this is where this all stemmed from, okay? So anywho, we were like, okay, well, how do we do this? How do we control where people make stuff? And if you know governance and Power Platform, there are only 3 questions you ever need to ask. Who is making stuff? Where are they making stuff? And what are they making? If you can answer those 3 questions, congratulations, you've done governance right, okay? So, first things first is we found this really cool piece of functionality called Groups Teams, brought to you from the same people that made Teams, right? And Groups Teams is actually a really cool set of security that you can use in low code to do some stuff. The second thing we did was we built our own custom environment picker because the maker experience wasn't cutting the mustard for us. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do this today. So first things first, if you understand that the kind of security layers in Power Platform, it is not limited to 5. There's lots of stuff that happens in between, but these are kind of like the 5 core things. One of the key things that I always look at is, well, do I need Dataverse or not? And the answer is you always need Dataverse. And I'll tell you why. Because first of all, it is not just a database. It is a governance tool that gives you lots of really good stuff in an environment to do management of the way the way in which people interact with the environment. Okay. So I was like, cool, Dataverse work. If I don't have Dataverse, I don't get ALM, I don't get all that good stuff, but also I don't get to control as much of the people who are accessing things who are not. This brings me to a slight quandary, right? We're looking at the Dataverse layers. We know that there's a lot of really good stuff in there, right? We can all agree that you've got ALM, you've got the ability to store data, but also you've got the ability to, again, deeply control security. Okay, so all good and well. Why do I have a picture of a waterfall? Let me explain. It's actually quite simple. When people ask me how Dataverse security works, it is really around, it looks a bit like a waterfall to me. And did you know, whenever you create a Dataverse environment, 2 things happen. The first thing is you get an organizational business unit, and that is the umbrella of the whole business unit, and then you get given a bunch of users. You can either do the security at the environment level using a security group as a core, or you can leave it completely, have everyone in the environment, and then control how they access things through user roles. Everyone happy with that? So unless you really want to assign user roles one by one to a user, which is a pain in the ass, you have to use something called Groups Teams, or the XRM Toolbox plugin hat. That works pretty well as well. So the way I see it is that it is kind of like standing on a waterfall. The people at the top can see everything down. The people in the bottom can see straight or down, but they can't see up. And you can control the way in which they interact with data. This model has been in Dataverse for years and years, since I've been around since CRM version 3. So obviously when Microsoft pried Dataverse out of the cold, dry hands of the Dynamics team, we got this. Now, the other cool thing is you can build your Dataverse structures out from a security perspective using these business units. And every time you make a business unit, you get given a team. This is important. The team is effectively the mechanism to house the users, and the business unit is the umbrella that creates the invisible walls between the data. What's also cool is you can have sub-business units as well. Now, in tools like Dynamics, this is really useful, especially when you're dealing with things like sales and customer service, because it gets big, right? And if you're dealing with a global organization, you have to segregate by country, by region, and you can do this using the business units. And then there's this thing called Teams inside Dataverse, and it basically hacks through the whole thing, right? So you can just like whack a team in, file through the whole thing, and be able to interact with data across these different business units. This solves a lot of problems in places like banks, right? or we have organizations with large sales regions or people in kind of silos, there's always a use case for firing through that data layer. I promise I'll get to the point of why this environment picker thing came up. So we're like, okay, so number one, do we make one giant environment, and do we say, okay, everyone put all your data in there, and then we'll just segregate it through business units, or do we create lots of environments and use the localized data structures in that way? And that's what we did. We had localized environments. We didn't just hammer everything into one Dataverse environment. If you do that, you will create a massive data overhead for yourselves. Okay. So, a couple of other things that came up. There are 3 core roles in Dataverse that you need to care about. There are only 3. The rest of it, I kind of just bolts onto the side. And the 3 roles are your environment maker role, your system customizer role, and your system admin role. And the whole idea is that environment maker is supposed to give makers the ability to make applications, but not straddle the database. Whereas the customizer role bolts onto the bottom of the make role to give you Dataverse access. And then you have the system admin, which is kind of most people in the room, would be my guess. So when you look at the roles, it starts getting really interesting. So the first thing is a couple of gotchas. Default environments. Every user in the default environment is in your business has got an environment maker and a basic user. When you actually open up those roles, the basic user has more rights to Dataverse than the environment maker. Right, so explain that one. So if your entire default environment has got a Dataverse, which it likely will have, because somebody has run an approval flow or filed that database up in there, you've got a problem, because that basically means your basic users are accessing that data structure. Anyway, that's just a by the by. So how does this all work? Well, let me give you a quick peek. Effectively, inside Dataverse, you can pop into your Power Platform Admin Center, select your environments, and you've got all your goodies over here. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of them, but it's relatively straightforward. So users be users. Users are either added one by one or through AD groups. Okay. The next thing is you've got your business unit structure, and users belong in business units. We can all agree that, right? And the third thing is you've got teams. Now, teams is where I'm really going with this, because business units are cool, but they complicate the hell out of things. So did you know you can create a thing called a groups team, where you can actually connect to an Azure AD group, assign that groups team security roles, and users then are added to that groups team or removed to that groups team from AD. It's a very, very, very cool feature. So effectively, all that you're really doing is if I say create a team, I'm going to give it a name, whatever, it doesn't matter. The business unit you can select from your set of business units, so you can have an entire data structure linking up to AAD security groups and controlling the groups through AAD rather than directly in Dataverse. Praise the Lord, right? So you don't have to worry, you don't have to have the Power Platform admin doing it. You can actually have somebody that's an Azure admin doing it. So I'm just going to pick a random one. Admin, I'm just going to make me, of course, oops. There we are. And the team type, you've got your AAD security group. So all I do is pop it in there, select governance, because I've got an AAD group for governance, and bam. What I'll then do is I'll select my security role. Now, this is where it starts getting super weird. Did you know that of those 3 security roles, there are only 3 security roles that allow users to go to make.powerapps.com and actually see the environments. You cannot see environments if you have a custom role. It will not work. You can only use environment maker, system customizer, and system admin. Here's the next thing. Who controls the security roles? None of you all do, Microsoft do. And what happens if you change the security role? That change will not persist. If Microsoft make an update against that role, it will likely break. So what now? We have a problem. Because if Microsoft control all the security roles and control who sees make.powerapps.com, as admins, we have a bit of an issue. So I found a way around it, of course. So what we did is we said, okay, that's fine. We've got groups teams. Just by the way, to let you know, groups teams is a real thing. Here's the security page with it on. See, groups teams, right? It actually is a real thing, and they named it that. Anyway, so what I did was I thought, okay, I have a bunch of users looking to access make.powerapps.com. They're probably not going to go to the maker experience. What's the best way to do it? So we make a custom role called Chris Environment Maker, and we save it. Now here's the thing. They can't go to the maker experience to see that custom role. And because they have the custom role that I'm controlling that will persist with updates, how do they get access to make.powerapps.com? This is where the interesting bit comes in. We decided that using groups teams, we would have a massive control center in Azure, making sure that those users behave themselves. And then we thought, actually, you know what? If you go into the Center of Excellence starter kit and you look in that model-driven app, what can you get? You get the environment URL. Interesting. So we made a custom environment picker. I'm going to show you a very bad version of this today. All right. And all we did is we said, okie dokes, here's a SharePoint list. And and you can actually see I've got dev, test, and live with the environment URL. You can obviously obfuscate that if you really want to. Users never have to see that. It's really easy to do. And you can do your 3-screener, create an app, right? Bam. Just going to give it a random name. Cool. And what will happen, I'm going to do what they do in those baking shows. You know when they put they marinate a chicken, put it in the oven, in 1 second they take it out? Yeah, watch this. Boom. Right. There it is. So this is a custom environment picker. You can see that I'm sorting by country. The NC, this one's for you, buddy. So there we go. I've filtered by my country for Finland. I just fire it up and launch the environment. Done deal. I never have to go to make.powerapps.com to select an environment again. I can use my custom picker. And that worked super well. Obviously, you can make it a lot more sexy. And hopefully, we'll have a couple more filters on here. And what I've done is I was actually looking at the user's region, because in Azure Active Directory, you can use the connector, look at where they're coming from, and you can filter the environments even before they've logged in. So they literally never have to go here. And that, folks, is the gloriousness of groups, teams, and custom environment pickers. Now, the one thing to head, just as a heads up, if you take the approach, just be careful. You risk business unit Armageddon, and you also risk Azure AD group Armageddon. Okay, it's a great way of managing people in the business, but also it's going to happen anywhere, right? People are going to be accessing either directly through Dataverse, so you can control the role there, or why not just put it on the backs of our Azure friends to manage in AD. So that's that, folks. I hope that was fun. Thank you very much. And not a real database.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Cool.